Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our next episode of the EducAsian Livestream series. My name is Petrania Poonswan. The series is brought to you by the Asian Community Development Council. And today we're going to be talking jobs, right? This has kind of been the big story this year, of course, with the pandemic. Either people are losing their jobs, switching to a new career, or just kind of planning out what the next year will be like, obviously, after a very challenging 2020. So we want to bring this up, especially because ACDC is about to host another graduation ceremony. Virtual winter 2020 graduation ceremony coming up in a few weeks. So we want to make sure we kind of pave the way for people who are listening in, people who are looking to just make that next leap into a new career, maybe starting next year. So I have a very special guest with us today. We have Maggie Shu. She is the co-founder of the nonprofit Go House Collective. Maggie, thank you so much for joining us today. Nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And Maggie may be familiar if you watched our last spring graduation back in May. Maggie was actually one of the speakers, one of the panelists talking about job trends as well back then. But as you know, this year, Maggie, has just been such a whirlwind, and in just like 6-7 months, so many things have changed, right? And we want to kind of look forward now, hopefully, with the light at the end of the tunnel coming up in 2021 in terms of what people can expect, especially, students who are graduating from college during this crazy year, this unprecedented year, what they can expect. So first, for people who are not familiar with Maggie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know you work in the professional world with Amazon, but you're also leading up this very unique nonprofit as well.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. So my day job, I lead business development for Amazon Managed Blockchain, which is Amazon's blockchain product. And I'm also co-founder of Gold House Collective. And Gold House is a collective of influential Asians across media, tech, entertainment, fashion, and a bunch of other industries, really to support each other and help each other thrive. And so one of our big initiatives is Gold Open, which is ensuring the opening weekend box office success of major films such as Crazy Rich Asians, Parasite, more recently Mulan. We also have Gold Rush, which is an Asian founder network, and a number of other initiatives. So definitely, glad to be here and glad to be talking about jobs.
Yeah. And, and like we were saying, you're part, I think you're in a unique space, being part of, a corporate world, but also nonprofit world, right? So, and I think right now people are thinking, whether if they're shifting careers or getting into the job market for the first time, whether to go into nonprofit or into a corporate world. But I think kind of the underlying message that you've been talking about, since the beginning of the year, what hasn't changed is this is the year where you have to be flexible, to kind of be open to whatever opportunities are out there right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of us envisioned that this was what the year was going to bring. And so I think there's obviously a lot of uncertainty and a lot of change. And so I think, one piece of advice is this definitely probably wasn't the path that you had envisioned, but there are a lot of opportunities. And I think in uncertainty, they'll come up with a lot of new opportunities for people who are resourceful and adaptable and resilient and who can really identify those opportunities and move towards them.
And, talk to me about, first, let's talk about the corporate, because Amazon's such a big, huge company. I know you're in the HQ to the headquarters in Arlington, Virginia, the original headquarters is in Seattle, but this company is global, right? People are looking for opportunities for they're thinking Amazon would be such a great company to work for. What do people need to think about if they're considering a career and approaching, because it seems so overwhelming right now, because we're now in a sense where if we want a job in Amazon, it's basically you go online, right? It's like virtual interviews. It's a lot of things are going virtual now. So what's kind of the first thing your advice for people looking to kind of break in to such a big company like Amazon?
I think the first step is understanding, the company and the company's ethos. So at Amazon, we're very focused on our leadership principles. And so we have core principles and understanding why you would fit in at one company versus any other company and why that company appeals to you. Another area of focus for us is customer service. So we're really, really customer service driven. And I used to work for Zappos, which is a subsidiary of Amazon. And there's really this resonance between, do you have this, everything we do is for the customer. And so I think think understanding the unique value proposition of the company, and then using your network to talk to individuals who might work for that company. So informational interviews, as they're called, is really important. So getting to know different people at the company, and they might not have job openings, but they can tell you about their job, their teams, what it's like, and something might come up along the way. And so just, I'd say, being informed, and then also having the right skill sets. So it's a really great time to go back and just map and understand, like, what are my core strengths, and if I have any gaps, maybe I can take a course. There are a number of online courses. So I work for Amazon Web Services. There are self-service classes you can take, and you can get certified. And I know a way to stand out on any in terms of any job search is to have some of these certifications, and a lot of these you can do on your own time.
And that's the thing right now. Maybe some people aren't working right now because, they've been laid off or furloughed. So this is the perfect opportunity, is probably looking for some ways to boost your skills, and these classes that you're mentioning online. And I think you brought up a good point that this is, you got to really take advantage of and get comfortable with networking online and not in person, right? So any tips for that? I know people have been maybe sprucing up their LinkedIn account, reaching out to people on LinkedIn and other sites like that in order to do more networking during these times.
It's funny, I was actually just right before this at a speed networking event, and I had never been to a virtual speed networking, but it was every 6 minutes. It was a community of business development professionals that I'm in, and we switched, and you just met someone you didn't know who was about to show up. I think practice makes perfect. So for me, I'm an introvert, but having opportunities to speak to people is helps me get better at that. And so I would say there are lots of innovative event formats going on right now in terms of the networking. So I would maybe sign up for one of those. And worst case, you don't see the person, you're on a screen, and then they're somewhere else. So I think just keep practicing, keep refining your story and your pitch of who you are and why you're memorable. So I think that a lot of people, there's a lot to them, but for each individual job opportunity, what about that job, do you really match with, and what is that one-liner that makes you memorable? And so to your point about LinkedIn, making sure LinkedIn profile is up to date, you have a good headshot, you have endorsements and references, all these things are really important.
Yeah, and it's just such a good opportunity to learn. Like you said, the speed networking events, which I think is just kind of the sign of the times. You've never heard of anything like this until this year. But getting involved in things like that, or like you said, informational interviews, is just getting yourself comfortable, right? Because maybe these people can't hire you, but getting them to kind of talk to you and just kind of getting to know their industries, I think that's really important. And I know, as part of Goal House Collective, you do the hiring process there as well for your nonprofit, for your staff and your volunteers. So talk to me about that process, because it's such a nerve-wracking, situation already to be interviewing for a job, but then having to do it virtually, like on through Zoom or what I've been hearing. I was talking to someone about these recorded interviews now. Like you have to record yourself, answer questions, which I think could be really kind of awkward, because to kind of talk like you don't know who's going to be listening to you. You're answering these kind of generic job related questions. Kind of what's kind of been your experience going through that process right now?
Again, I think preparation is important. So, as a hiring manager, I can tell when someone is submitting the same application to multiple places, right? So what about the role or the organization? Is there a fit? Is there a fit with the values? Is there a fit with the mission? Back to the point about informational interviews, I think those are so important just to understand, the lingo and the terminology. So I work in blockchain, and sometimes there might be terms that you're not sure how to pronounce, and just understanding, how you pronounce them. Also just current trends are important. And it shocks me, but so many people don't do the quick Google search. So if you're interviewing for a company, it takes 30 seconds to Google the company and see what their latest news was. Maybe they just announced earnings, or they had some big partnership announcement, and if you're talking to a person, for example. So I'm always impressed with candidates that take the time to research me and know a little bit about me, and are able to, map that to something, a question that I might have, for example.
Yeah, it surprised me too. Like when I interview for interns or anything like that, just kind of like that little step to learn about, check out maybe my social media account or the company's It's so easy. You have Google now, you know what I mean? Back in our days, we don't have these resources in order to get quick information about who you're going to be talking to. So these things, and talk about internships. I mean, this is the time, right? Even if you can't maybe get a job, maybe a chance to volunteer at an organization or do an internship, that's the getting your foot in the door to get into a potential job in the future.
I mean, absolutely, you nailed it. So getting your foot in the door is the first step. And so taking the time to, volunteer, intern, or just get to know an organization. And then when those jobs open up, you'll probably be the first person that they call because you're there, you already understand the systems, you've put in the time, you've put in the effort. So I think one of the, tough things is that you might have a certain job in mind or certain industry or certain, you might have this perfect job and it might not exist today, just whether it's due to the pandemic or other circumstances. And so relaxing some of those factors, and maybe it's your dream company, but not exactly the right role. I would recommend just getting into that company anyway. And then when you learn the company, you can probably start meeting people who are closer to the role that you're interested in.
Yeah. And, I think there's a power to kind of getting the word out there that you're looking for a job. I've seen more and more of these posts on LinkedIn where people are saying, hey, I just graduated. These are my skills. These are my strengths. I'm looking to get hired. And I think, there's something to be said about doing that. I mean, it sounds like it's self-promotion, but in this day and age, I think you have to get the word out, right? That you're looking for a job and who you are and what you can do.
And there's some incredible digital communities. So Asian American Girl Club, the Asian Hustle Network on Facebook, and they have, they're so welcoming and inclusive. And I've seen people post about what they're doing or what they're looking to do. And people just, tens and hundreds of people write back of advice. And so I think, putting yourself out there, as you were saying, is really important. And just having an open mind and really seeing, what comes, and you'd be surprised. Sometimes the best jobs never get posted, right? They're never on a job site because they get snapped up before then. It's really, someone calls someone and they say, oh, you'd be perfect for this. So I think sometimes, unfortunately, by the time it gets posted, it's too late because you're one of thousands of applicants. So really taking that time to get to know people and not just in a transactional way. So one of the things that my former boss, Tony Shea, taught me was, it's not about a one-to-one transaction and what can you do for me today and what can I do for you. It's about getting to know people over the long term and really, developing that genuine relationship and connecting with them, every so often if you see an article that reminds you of them. And then again, when the time comes and they know what you're up to and they might think of you for the opportunity. That's actually how I got my current job at Amazon, because I had connected with someone over the years who was at Amazon, and he remembered me and we had kept in touch.
Yeah, there's something about that relationship. And now, as my former career as a journalist, and the relationships I built there as a journalist have actually helped me now as a small business owner. And as a small business owner, I feel like relationships are everything. I mean, whether it be a potential client or someone that can help you grow, and a mentor, it's just so important. And I know some people feel like it's so hard to get out there right now. You can't meet people; they're all online. But we're doing this online right now. We're having this conversation on the internet, and I feel like I'm having a genuine relationship and conversation with you. So I think that can be made possible, and if you're just tuning in on our Facebook right now on ACDC, as you can see, we're talking career development, job trends, especially during this pandemic. And we're bringing this up because in a couple of weeks, we're actually having a winter graduation. So this is an event that Asian Community Development Council, ACDC, put on every spring and winter in order to, and you see looking at pictures here of when we actually could have, gather. This was a few years ago. But the goal of it is to get to these Asian American students who are graduating from colleges and universities across Nevada and highlight their achievements, what they've done, and just kind of show their stories. So many of these people, they just basically, they don't want to just be part of that graduating class, right? They all have their skills and their strengths, and how do we highlight their stories and just to recognize their achievements? And because this year of the pandemic, we had to hold our graduation ceremony in spring virtually. And again, for the winter, hopefully by next year, we could do it in person. But right now, I think, especially these graduates, and that's why we bring people like Maggie into the conversation that we're having every week, is to be able to give advice, right, for students who are graduating. So I know we're talking about looking forward to the future. A lot of people are coming out now like, oh, oh my gosh, are my degrees, are they going to do anything? What kind of jobs can I look for next year? And you said that there are some trends that you can see for 2021, some of the job markets that may be hiring more than others.
Yeah, I mean, I think tech is the natural one, and I was just going through a scan of companies that are hiring, and it's not surprising, like, delivery services and like anything that's adapting to this new normal. I mean, I was even just like streaming services like the one we're using, and this virtual networking event I was on was a technology platform that was innovative, video speed dating, right? So there are all these really interesting digital forward tech opportunities. I also do think there's been so much conversation around diversity and inclusion. So even if it's not specifically at a firm or nonprofit that does these issues, a lot of companies are thinking through diversity and inclusion as well as wellness. And so there are really interesting opportunities to affect in a kind of, I'd say, HR adjacent realm within D&I and wellness. And that's something that just wasn't necessarily a priority for a lot of companies. And so it's really hard to see that. And then I think a lot of these other industries are rebounding. So, the ones that are really struggling now, like hospitality and restaurants and things like that, they're innovating, and they're new ways of distributing. And so, restaurants aren't necessarily doing well, but catering. And so, there are ways to kind of pivot that to what this business model is. It's been fascinating actually to watch the change from releasing films in theater to streaming, right? And that's a really interesting change. And so I'm thinking through, like, let's say you're interested in entertainment, what are the new opportunities at the Hulus and the Netflixes and the HBO Maxes of the world, or even at a traditional theater, they're trying to deal with their strategy of what to do with all that real estate. And I think there are actually a number of interesting real estate opportunities for those that are more entrepreneurial. There's a lot of distressed real estate, and so people who are fluent in a broker, a real estate broker, anyone who understands like that landscape, commercial real estate. I think there's a lot of interesting things there as well.
Yeah, it's such an interesting year, and I think even for those of us who have jobs right now, I think what this year has taught us that nothing is permanent, right? Nothing is guaranteed. You never know if your job is going to be there next year. So I think being over prepared is kind of more important than ever. Just knowing that, hey, maybe, be prepared for maybe potential layoffs or furlough in the future. And what are you doing? Do you have a plan B? Do you have, your resume kind of polished up and updated? So these are the kind of things that are you recommending people, like when you meet people who are looking to get a job or advice for them? Is that kind of what you're telling people? It's like, hey, you never know what's going to happen. You have to be prepared for what's to come.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say, what is it? Expect the best, but prepare for the worst. So I would, make it a point to, continue to have these conversations with people. So I at one point, and this sounds very tactical, but I said I wanted to meet 7 new people every week. There's like 1 year when I did this, and I would go to a party and I met my, quota for the week. I met 7 people. I think for, the average person, it's so easy to just not do that. And so maybe it's, once a week or once every other week, you make it a point to, reach out to someone on LinkedIn or, read an article or do like one little activity, just so that, when, heaven forbid, if something did happen, you don't have to start from scratch, right? And you're not just all of a sudden saying like, oh, I need to update my resume. I need to start looking for jobs. Like I haven't even thought about this. So always just having an eye out for these opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that you've been, just kind of the forefront of, diversity, and especially with Gold House Collective, really trying to, increase our diversity culture here in this country. And it's just been very, kind of hopeful, especially, just starting from the new administration, kind of trying to make, an administration that's very diverse. Is that the trend you're seeing with like companies and businesses and nonprofits, that they have that in their mind right now, that they want to, increase their diversity hiring and make that face of their company or their businesses just as diverse as possible?
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing it now, and I'm sure you are too. I think for me, diversity is diversity in many, many different forms. So there's actually been a lot of interesting research that shows that more diverse teams, and that could be, any measure of diversity. So kind of the traditional ones we think of are maybe ethnicity and gender and, demographics and background, but, diversity of thought process, diversity of introverts and extroverts, right? Like these all actually build stronger teams. And so I think that, companies are sometimes doing it because they have to, but I hope to see more companies that are doing it because they truly believe that it makes them a better company, and more adaptable, more resilient to last longer.
And so let's get right into the basic things, right? When you're reaching out to a company, maybe through a cover letter or a cover email, what are the things that you're looking for? And what's the key things that you're looking for, maybe your pet peeves when people are reaching out to you for a potential job?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the little things that made typos, and I've actually gotten, letters addressed to the wrong person. And so this, it seems like this is a no-brainer, but my recommendation is draft your note or whatever it is, get someone to read it, send it the next day, just make sure you've thought about it. Sometimes you're just missing things because you're so deep in it. I've seen resumes with errors and the person's just so used to their resume, they didn't even catch it. So I'd say, use your network to help refine your pitch. And also, again, the more detailed, the more thoughtful, the more specific you can be, the more helpful. But I got my job with Tony through a cold email. So I think some people might say, you have to always have a warm referral or a warm lead. I'd say, be creative. And I've seen people reach out on Twitter or Instagram. There's so many interesting ways people connect now and get the attention of other people. There's an example I gave at the graduation event, but this gentleman was graduating from college and he was looking for a job and he couldn't find a job. And so he was actually helping his, I think, grandparents get delivery, food delivery. And it was really hard to get a delivery slot on Whole Foods or Amazon. So he wrote a script, a computer script that helped them get it. And then he got some national, coverage of it. And so I found out about it and I actually used it because I was having a hard time getting delivery slots for groceries. And he basically said, I want to open source this. Anyone can use it, but I'm just looking for job opportunities. And it was oh my gosh, I immediately sent him a note and said, if you're interested, I'm happy to talk. And so there are creative ways to just, build products or do something. And I know people who, are designing things for, social distancing and things like that, and get them out and get people aware of that. And those sorts of opportunities, I think, are what people are interested in, and they'll reach out to you. That's almost the goal, is for someone to reach out to you because they're so interested in how you've approached a new problem or challenge.
Yeah, and underlying all this, I think, and you brought up the late Tony Hsieh, and I think his philosophy is, to build culture, a good, positive, happy work culture, right? And I think, when we talk about all these details of finding a job, landing that career, I think, overall, we just want to be happy, right? We want to find a job that makes us happy, fulfills us, and just kind of lead us on that path that we've always been wanting to do. So kind of what's the message that you want to put out there? Because a lot of people are so stressed out right now. I just want to get a job so I can pay my bills, but at the same time, you kind of want to balance that out, finding that career that will make you happy, that will be something that you really want to do. And how do you find that balance in terms of just finding that job and then finding that right career for you?
I think it's really hard. I mean, to be honest, there are, depending on, some of the outside pressures you have, whether they're financial or family, you might have to sacrifice some of those things just to get that paycheck. And, I have a number of friends that are, what is that first thing I can find? And so I think that's important if you need to do that. But, if you can, again, think through one of the things Tony always talked about was, what are your core values? What are your personal core values? And are those aligned to the core values of the company? And so again, I would prioritize when looking at a company, less the function, less what I'm doing for the company, but making sure that the mission of the company aligns with, something I'm passionate and excited about, because I think that's a much longer term opportunity. But yes, I mean, there are people who, they will want to take the first thing that comes along. And I think in that case, understanding, how can this be a building block to the next thing? is really important. And, how can I use this opportunity in a positive way? So, yes, it's a paycheck. Yes, it's not exactly what I want to be doing, but am I managing a team, right? Am I, leading a team? How can I use those learnings? Or am I, learning about this new industry that I never thought I'd be in? How can I use that going forward?
Yeah. And like you said, like you are working, maybe find the opportunity while you're working 9 to 5 job to maybe volunteer with a nonprofit or somewhere, like somewhere where you feel like you can maybe potentially work with them in the future, but at least they get to know you, know that you're passionate about it. And I think that's one of the things I really appreciate about having my own business now is that I get to kind of pick and choose a little bit, like people I want to work with. A lot of them are nonprofits, and I feel like the work that I'm doing really makes a difference in somehow, like rather than just kind of doing the work for what it is, which I think will get you through the day eventually. It's like some of the work is really challenging, but at least you're doing for a greater cause, which I think is important,
sure.
Which I think the Go House Collective, that's been kind of the mission for you, right? In order to maybe that bigger perspective of promoting, especially Asian Americans who maybe their voices are not being heard, or, their talents are untapped or unseen. And you want to get that out there for the general public to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Maggie, thank you so much for your time. I mean, I think this is the kind of conversation that we want to get out there, get people hopeful and optimistic for 2021, just around the corner now. And we hope to have Maggie back in the near future and keep motivating, especially our soon to be college grads who are going to be getting out there in the real world very soon. You might want to contact Maggie, let her know that you're looking for a job. She might have someone that you may want to contact with in the near future. So Maggie, thank you so much for your time. And congratulations on all your success.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Education Livestream Series, and we'll see you next time.